In the heart of the Egyptian desert, where the sands whisper stories older than time itself, a woman once walked who claimed she had lived before. Not decades, but millennia ago. Her name was Dorothy Eady, but in another life, she said, she had been called Omm Sety, the priestess and lover of Pharaoh Seti I, a man who ruled Egypt more than 3,000 years before she was even born. This is her story. A story that challenges the boundaries of science, faith, and time itself. A story of love beyond death, and a mystery that Egypt never truly buried. It all began on January 16, 1904, in a small London suburb. Dorothy Louise Eady was born into an ordinary English family. Her parents, Reuben and Caroline, had no idea that their daughter's destiny was anything but ordinary. When Dorothy was just 3 years old, tragedy struck. One morning, she slipped on the stairs of her home, tumbling violently down. When her mother found her, she wasn't breathing. A doctor was called, and the small child was declared dead. But hours later, as her body lay still, something impossible happened. Dorothy woke up, not with a faint gasp, but with a wild cry, as if reborn. The doctor, stunned, told the family she had somehow survived a fatal injury. But the girl who opened her eyes was not quite the same child who had fallen. From that day forward, Dorothy changed. She began speaking in strange ways, asking to go home, though she insisted that home was not in England. She told her bewildered parents she wanted to go where the people wear white robes and tall buildings with columns touch the sky. She had dreams, vivid, haunting dreams of places she had never seen. Stone halls, temples, and gardens overlooking a mighty river. It was as if a veil had lifted, revealing memories not of this lifetime, but of another. At the age of 4, her parents took her to the British Museum. They wandered into the Egyptian galleries, filled with mummies, statues, and artifacts from the land of the Nile. And then, it happened. As Dorothy stepped into the Grand Hall of Ancient Egypt, something inside her broke open. She ran ahead of her parents, pressing her small hands against the glass cases. When she came to a statue of Pharaoh Seti I, she froze. Then she began to cry. Not a frightened child's cry, but one of recognition. "This is my home," she said. "These are my people." Her parents, embarrassed and confused, tried to quiet her. But the little girl clung to the statue's base, refusing to leave. From that moment, her obsession began. She began asking questions about Egypt no one expected a child to know. She drew strange symbols that resembled hieroglyphs long before she ever learned what they were. She insisted that the ancient gods, Osiris, Isis, and Horus, were real beings she had once known. Her teachers grew worried. Her father, convinced his daughter's fascination bordered on delusion, took her to priests and psychologists. But Dorothy only smiled and said softly, "I am not from here. I belong to another time." As she grew older, Dorothy's visions deepened. She often woke in the night speaking an unknown language, later recognized as ancient Egyptian. She said she saw great halls of stone lit by oil lamps, men in white linen robes, and a king whose face she loved but could never forget. In her teenage years, she began calling herself Omm Sety, meaning Mother of Seti. She claimed that in a previous life she had been a young woman in ancient Egypt, a priestess at the Temple of Seti I in Abydos, one of Egypt's holiest cities. According to her memories, her name had been Bentreshit, a consecrated virgin priestess. But she had broken her vows of chastity when she fell in love with Pharaoh Seti I himself. Their secret love affair, she said, ended tragically. When the affair was discovered, Bentreshit, unable to face the shame or punishment, took her own life, and ever since, she believed, her soul had wandered, waiting for him. By the 1920s, Dorothy Eady had grown into a bright but eccentric young woman. She studied Egyptian history, hieroglyphs, and archaeology with obsessive dedication. Her knowledge became extraordinary. She could recite hymns to Isis and Osiris in flawless ancient Egyptian pronunciation. She began corresponding with Egyptologists, who were astonished by her insights. Some even joked that she must have lived there once, never imagining she truly believed it. Then, in 1931, fate intervened again. She met an Egyptian man named Imam Abdel-Meguid, who shared her passion for his country's history. They married and moved to Cairo, the land of her dreams finally beneath her feet. When her ship approached the Egyptian coast, she wept uncontrollably. As the pyramids came into view, she whispered, "I am home." Life in Cairo was not easy. Her husband soon realized that Dorothy Eady's fascination with ancient Egypt was not a mere hobby. It was an obsession. She spent hours at the Giza Plateau, speaking softly to the ruins. She claimed that the spirits of ancient priests spoke to her, guiding her to hidden passages and long-forgotten rituals. She said that Pharaoh Seti I often visited her in dreams, appearing as he had 3,000 years ago, regal and kind, his eyes filled with an eternal love. He called her Omm Sety, and in her dreams, he told her of the days they had shared long ago in Abydos. Dorothy began writing down these dreams, filling notebooks with conversations and memories of temple life. She described ancient ceremonies, sacred gardens, and even songs sung to the gods, many of which had not yet been translated by scholars. But over time, her marriage crumbled. Her husband could no longer live with her obsession. They divorced, but Dorothy stayed in Egypt, determined to dedicate her life to the land she felt she had once served. In the 1950s, Dorothy moved to Abydos, the ancient city she had described since childhood, the place she claimed she had once lived and died. There, she began working for the Egyptian Department of Antiquities. Despite lacking formal credentials, her knowledge of ancient rituals, architecture, and language was astonishing. Archaeologists soon realized something extraordinary. Dorothy could predict the locations of undiscovered chambers and describe ancient temple functions with uncanny precision. She knew where inscriptions lay hidden beneath centuries of sand. She described the exact layout of the Temple of Seti I, including features that had not yet been excavated. When tested by experts, she passed every challenge. Once, the temple's chief inspector asked her to stand in front of wall reliefs in complete darkness and identify them by touch. She did so flawlessly, naming scenes and gods without hesitation. Another time, she led a team to an unmarked garden area, claiming it once held a sacred pool. When the area was excavated, there it was. Skeptics tried to dismiss her, suggesting she had simply studied so extensively that she could make educated guesses. But how could she know the location of a garden that had been buried for 3,000 years? How could she describe murals that no one had seen in modern times? The archaeologists who worked with her were baffled. They couldn't explain it, but they couldn't deny it either. Omm Sety wasn't just working in the temple, she was living in it, as if she had simply returned home. She would rise before dawn to leave offerings for the gods, just as a priestess would have done thousands of years ago. She spoke of the pharaoh not as a historical figure, but as the man she still loved. For the local villagers, she was a living legend, a wise woman who held the secrets of their ancestors. For nearly 30 years, Omm Sety lived in a simple mud brick house beside the temple, her constant companion. She never remarried, dedicating her entire existence to serving the memory of her pharaoh and her gods. She documented her past life in detail, leaving behind diaries filled with information that continues to fascinate and challenge Egyptologists today. Was Dorothy Eady a brilliant but deluded scholar? Or was she truly Omm Sety, the priestess of Abydos, returned from the mists of time? Her story forces us to question what we know about life, death, and the enduring power of love. In 1981, Omm Sety passed away in Abydos. She was buried in the desert she loved, her grave unmarked, just another whisper in the sands. But for those who knew her, and for those who hear her story, She remains a bridge between two worlds, a testament to a love that even 3,000 years could not erase. For Dorothy, archaeology wasn't just about digging up the past. It was about reconnecting with a memory. She often said that every stone in Abydos whispered to her, that each ancient wall echoed with the voice of the man she loved, Pharaoh Seti I. She believed, with all her heart, that Seti still visited her in spirit. On quiet nights, she would leave offerings for him at the temple, fresh flowers, fragrant incense, or small handwritten notes, messages sent across the millennia. She described these spiritual encounters with a profound sense of love. "He comes to me as he did before," she wrote in her journal. "He speaks with the same voice, the same love. Time has not changed us." To Omm Sety, the centuries that separated them were nothing more than a brief pause. Their love, she insisted, had simply been waiting for her to be reborn and return. In her detailed journals, she painted vivid pictures of a long-lost world. She described temples glowing under the soft flicker of torchlight, the intoxicating scent of lotus flowers filling the night air, and sacred rituals performed beneath a canopy of stars. She could recall the exact hymns the priests chanted to Osiris, and she swore that if you listened closely, you could still hear those ancient chants carried on the winds of Abydos. As word of Omm Sety and her extraordinary claims spread, scholars, skeptics, and journalists from around the world flocked to meet her. Some saw her as a living enigma, a window into a forgotten time. Others dismissed her as a brilliant but eccentric woman lost in a world of fantasy. Yet, even her most hardened critics could not deny the stunning accuracy of her knowledge. One prominent Egyptologist famously remarked, "She knows things that cannot be guessed, things that even we, with years of specialized training, have only just discovered." Time and again, her memories aligned perfectly with later archaeological findings. She described rituals that had not yet been deciphered from hieroglyphs, and pointed out the locations of hidden gardens and secret chambers that were later confirmed by excavations. Despite the growing attention, Omm Sety never sought fame or fortune. She lived a simple, humble life in a small mud brick house near the temple. Her home was a sanctuary filled with cats, candles, and stacks of papyrus scrolls. The children of Abydos adored her, and the local villagers respected her deeply, affectionately calling her the wise woman of the temple. To some, she was the reincarnated priestess she claimed to be. To others, she was a living bridge between the world of science and the realm of the spirit. As she grew older, Omm Sety often spoke about death, but she did so without a trace of fear. For her, it was not an end, but a homecoming. She was simply returning to the sacred halls of her beloved temple and to the man she had loved across lifetimes. She even designed her own tomb, a simple, unassuming resting place near Abydos, where she hoped her soul would finally find eternal peace. In her final interview, a reporter asked if she truly believed she had lived before. She smiled gently, a lifetime of conviction in her eyes, and replied, "Of course. Death is not the end. We come back again and again. And if you listen closely, Egypt remembers." Dorothy Eady, the woman who became Omm Sety, passed away in 1981 at the age of 77. She was buried near the ancient temples she had dedicated her life to protecting. To this day, locals and visitors leave offerings on her tomb, flowers, candles, and sometimes a small scarab stone, a symbol of rebirth. And those who walk near her resting place at night sometimes swear they can hear footsteps, soft, measured, as if someone is once again walking the sacred halls they called home. Today, Dorothy Eady's life remains one of the most baffling and beautiful stories in modern history. Was she truly the reincarnation of a temple priestess named Bentrashit? Or was she simply a brilliant woman whose passion for Egypt was so profound that it transcended the boundaries of logic? Science cannot give us a definitive answer, but the evidence she left behind, her uncanny knowledge, her verifiable discoveries, and her unshakable conviction, continues to challenge what we think we know about life, time, and the human soul. In a world obsessed with cold, hard proof, Omm Sety offered something far rarer, a deep and abiding faith in the power of memory, a belief that love, devotion, and the spirit are stronger than death itself. And in the eternal sands of Abydos, where the ancient walls still whisper secrets to those who are willing to listen, perhaps her spirit still walks beside the one she loved, hand in hand with Pharaoh Seti I, together at last, beneath the stars of ancient Egypt. History often teaches us that time moves in a straight line, that once a moment ends, it is gone forever. But stories like Omm Sety's invite us to consider something deeper. Perhaps memory is not a prisoner of time. Perhaps the soul, much like the Nile River, always finds its way back home. In the echoes of the past, in the sands that shift but never disappear, Dorothy Eady's voice remains, a whisper through eternity, reminding us all, I have been here before, and I will return. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If you were as captivated by Omm Sety's story as we are, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales that challenge the world as we know it. We'll see you in the next one.